waiting. Webinar is now being live streamed. Waiting for it to show up, people. Good morning, if you're already here. If this is the portion where you just watch me wait for stuff to load on my computer, it's kind of nice. This is like an insight into my life. You know, often I feel like Instagram gives us this shiny, polished view of people, but where is the footage of just watching people wait for the internet to load? Where's the footage of people, you know, cleaning a stain out of their shirt on Instagram? That's the content we need to go viral. Or not. That would be funny to me, and then I would immediately not watch it. But I want someone else to do that and commit to that bit. I would like that. Well, happy Friday, everyone. This is the last, I think this is, I'm just checking my calendar here. This is going to be the last live show for a little bit because I'm going to a foreign exotic land called Quebec, which for those of you that are not from Canada, Quebec is sort of middle of this giant country I live in. And it's predominantly French speaking, although it might be more accurate to say that they speak Quebecois, which is kind of like saying, I don't know, like, well, English, to me, the accent's not quite as heavy. There's something about the Quebecois accent, which is very challenging, very hard to decipher and figure out. Hey, Heather, good morning. But anyhow, we're going to go over there. We're very excited for a couple of reasons. The first is we love speaking French, and it'll be fun to muddle through that. Two, old Quebec, which is the original city, if I remember reading what I read correctly, it's the only fortified city in North America. And so if you ever go to, say, Cuba or places like this, they have cities that originally were set up as like fortifications. Basically, it was a city built to defend against attacks and to like defend a harbor or whatever. Cuba, they've got places where you'd raise up a chain to stop boats coming through. And so the old Quebec City, the original Quebec City, is a place, it's the only existing fortified city in North America. So excited to see that. And then what's really cool to me is we'll be going to a wedding. That's cool. And then we're going to come back and go to an area called the Eastern Townships of Quebec, which is about an hour east of Montreal or Montreal. And what's very exciting to me about that is there's a book series Bay and I love called Inspector Gamache about this really fantastic inspector. And it's all written in these little tiny villages, sort of tucked away in the middle of a forest, covered with snow, with like bistros and delicious food. And so we're gonna sort of, it's totally a touristy thing to do, like do the tour inspired by the book. So we've got a cool place we're staying. We're gonna spend some time there. Heather, you skated in nationals in Quebec City. How did you do? And did you enjoy Quebec City many moons ago? I'm excited for the food too. Here's what's up for me today. I always like to start these lives off with a bit of like what's been going on for me. And what's been up for me is like a new kind of confrontation in my life. And the nature of that confrontation is that there's been an abundance of people reaching out to me for support, to work together, to do all that kind of stuff. Stuff I would have killed for like 10 years ago when I first started this work. Like, back then I was looking at one of my original coaching requests with my coach, and the project I was working on was I wanted to work with 20 people and make $30,000 a year. That was like the big vision. And that was a crazy vision. It was nuts for me to even think that. So 10 years later, I look back and I'm like, wow, it's a pretty small vision, but it was the vision I could create at the time. And these days, I'm finding an overwhelming number of people wanting support. So we've got the Forge, the program that Bay and I run. I've got my coaching practice, which is full. And then I was doing a talk at Google this week. I've got a university in the States reaching out, wanting me to come and work with their team. There's people saying, hey, can we start working together? Can we do this? Can we do that? Which is all amazing. I want to be super clear. It's really cool to have that kind of abundance. But what's interesting from a leadership perspective is that it's really creating a lot of confrontation for me in the form that I don't like to create disappointment in people. That's one of my core fears. I don't want to be a disappointment, and I don't want to leave you feeling disappointed. And so that fear is present anytime I share my rates to work with someone, because it's a big commitment to work with me. And when I meet with people and start to talk to them initially, and they get excited about what's possible in their lives, and then it comes to that point in the conversation where I'm going to tell them, here's the commitment on your part, I get very nervous, or at least my fear does. My fear is like, they're going to be disappointed. You're going to break their heart. It's going to suck, blah, blah, blah. The same thing's happening now with all of this abundance, is that while what I'm committed to is sourcing myself, honoring my well-being, not stacking my calendar full of appointments, and I'm committed to that for a whole ton of reasons, including that I can see how much that benefits the people I support when I'm supported. It's hard to really help someone with like their frantic energy, or their them feeling like, oh my God, I'm running from thing to thing to thing. It's really hard to support them if I'm also running from thing to thing to thing to thing. So I can't just say yes to all these people, but that's what my fear wants me to do. And we've got Thanksgiving coming up. I kind of want to call it Canadian Thanksgiving, except here we just call it Thanksgiving. So I've got Thanksgiving coming up this Monday, which is a holiday. And I must have looked at that date in my calendar, which is clear. I swear I've looked at that this week like 10 times and been like, could I stick them here? Could I put them here? What about there? Could I do that? And that's all in competition with, taking a vacation. And then in November, I have a bunch of travel, and then I take December all off. And so, hey, Abril, nice to see you. And so I'm in the challenge, the conflict of honoring what I'm standing for and my commitment, and then feeling my fear be like, yo, say yes to these people, help them too. So really cool in a way. When I empower, it's really cool. This work never ends. Your work's never going to end. Even when you get all the abundance in the world, then that's going to be confronting in its own way. And I trust that whenever I create whatever breakthrough is here to create right now, there'll be some new version of this breakthrough to create, and so on and so forth. So fascinating to me, fascinating. Heather saying, so amazed for me, Adam. Guys, write more like the stuff Heather's writing. I will definitely showcase those comments. You're such a gift to this work in the world, and I'm not surprised this is opening like this for you. Thank you, Heather. What I want to share on that note is, whilst I'm committed to well-being, sourcing myself, to honoring my own capacity, I'm also committed to transformation and leadership and coaching and elevating those things far beyond the range of my own capacity. And the way we do that is we build leadership. We develop leadership in other people so that we can hand the torch to them. We can allow them to step into that. That's the work Heather's doing, Sarah, other people that are in the Forge. We're really developing, as more people want to come and do this work with us in the Forge, we have to develop a bigger leadership team. And so at the end of this summer, we had a lot of people coming and asking. We had to turn a bunch away. And Bay and I were looking at like, what's being called to be creative? What do we want to do? We want to say yes to all these people, but before we can do that, we have to grow the leadership. So there's a lot of that conversation that I'm in right now, both with myself and other people, which is, how can I cause more in the world rather than do more in the world? How can I generate more, but not be the one to make it happen on me? That was weird the way I worded it, but I think you guys get that. So that's kind of what's live right now for me. That's good tea. We're rocking a bit of, what does this taste like? It tastes kind of like Earl Grey. One of the things people have asked for sometimes is like, you often have people on your show, Adam, that are very like self-aware, that are coaches, that are deep in their own transformational work, which is amazing. But it'd be nice to hear from people that aren't, because there's lots of us, lots of the people I work with, that's them saying it, that are just they're not trained as coaches. And so, I'd love to hear more of that conversation. And so I've got a really cool guest today, a woman I love very dearly. And Her name's Michelle Butler, and we met. I'll bring her on in just a moment, but we met probably maybe 6 or 7 years ago. A client of mine put us in touch, and we started working together. And what Michelle does is she runs, hey, Tommy Price, good morning. Vanilla black cream tea. That sounds amazing. Michelle runs a design studio in the Cayman Islands. And so totally different place, not a coach, but leading nonetheless. You know, anytime you're running a company, you've got leadership opportunities everywhere. And so I reached out to Michelle, who she and I have not talked for quite some time, maybe been 4 years or so, said, yo, would you like to come on? We could just chat, reminisce, tell jokes, talk about your experience in coaching and leadership and what you're up to now and all of that sort of stuff. So Michelle, turn on your camera, turn your stupid mic on. Let me get off the hot seat. Hello.
Hello.
The first thing for everyone, you notice the awesome wallpaper behind Michelle. And we were joking about this before we started, but every time, so you always sent me photos of the pre-coaching form that you'd fill out. And one of the things that was so great about, often you get these forms back, my clients send them the forms, just a bunch of text. And Michelle was very intentional every time about putting some cool piece of design work into the photo. I think because it would have exploded your head if it was just a boring, was that any part of that true?
Well, it was any surface that I would put that paper down to take the photo on usually did have something cool. It was like, oh, here's an interesting tile, or here's a paint chip. And I'm like, I think this would make Adam happy. Let's include the corner of this cool thing.
So it was to please me.
Yeah, entirely.
No wonder we got along so well. I so get it. Where are you physically, geographic? Like, where are you right now?
So as you said, I'm in the Cayman Islands. I'm in my house. I've actually been in the Cayman Islands now for 2 years on this little rock because of COVID. 2 years, no traveling.
No, you've been there way longer, haven't you?
I've been in Cayman my whole life, so I'm from here, but technically I have not been off of the island for 2 years because of COVID and travel restrictions. So I feel very much here in my house, in my little office, which is where we are sharing the space today. I do have a lovely ocean view, and there's nothing to complain about. It's a wonderful place to be. So anywhere trapped for 2 years, I'd recommend Cayman.
Have you guys done with COVID? Like, has that been challenging, or has it been a whatever?
We're such a small island. I mean, the whole island is not even 30 miles long, and I think there's, I think we're up to 50, almost 60,000 people. So we did a very early full-on lockdown, like 3 months, basically don't leave your house, alphabetized grocery shopping, that kind of stuff.
Wait, alphabetized? Does that help against COVID?
Did that not happen everywhere?
It's the sorting order of your groceries. That's how COVID gets in. Don't put the X before the B.
Apples first, bananas next, celery. Come on, guys, get your shit together. Oh, sorry.
You can swear as much as you want. Cuss. Really let out that, yeah, this is going to be very therapeutic.
Wild day. No, we had to grocery shop based on our last names. So,
interesting.
F had to grocery shop on a certain day, F and so on the alternate days, so that the shops weren't overwhelmed. And yeah, the same thing applied to outdoor activities, going to the beach. And then at a certain point, we were not allowed out of our houses at all for probably, I want to say that lasted for almost a month, where we were not allowed out. There were helicopters flying over. I mean, it was really wild. So it sounds very extreme, and thinking back, yes, it was very extreme. But the outcome of that 3-month hard hit was that for the last year and a half, we've had no COVID at all in our community. We've been living completely normal, mask-free lives, social gatherings. Like it's like COVID doesn't exist in this little bubble that we've created.
You guys like New Zealand a bit?
Yeah.
Like they had this similar kind of thing.
Hardcore close down, and then we were able to live somewhat normally. But the downside of that is, of course, like, we're a small island. We rely on tourism a lot, so the economy has, well, certain sectors of the economy have struggled for sure. And it's just been generally really weird to not go anywhere. And there's this sort of slightly strange, oppressive feeling. But I think that might be a global condition right now in terms of COVID and what's happening and just the strangeness of it all. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no doubt. What
Yeah.
has it affected? Well, so tell us what you do first. Like, what is, and remind me of, is it actually called Design Studio or Design House or something? I think you had a name like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's called Design Studio. So that's kind of my core business. And then since we've spoken, actually, I've expanded in a few ways. So I purchased another business that's in the same area, another retail business. It's like a bedding, bath, baby business that I think is a nice complement to the Design Studio core, which is like furnishings, home decor, interior design. So I have these two retail entities right now. Great time for retail. Um,
Yeah.
okay, we'll ride it out. So my core business is really interior design, and I have these two retail shops. But then I've also, in the last few years, gotten into development. So my family's history in Cayman Islands
When you say
development.
development, do you mean like properties, like developing
Mhm.
properties? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you and I probably touched on this a bit because I know at one point I had definitely spoken about, the future and development. Do I follow in the family footsteps? All that kind of stuff comes up,
Yes, I
and
remember that.
that we want to go. And the exciting thing was a couple of years ago, I guess 4 years ago now, we had the opportunity to get a piece of land, and we're now building a big, fantastic looking condo building.
Wow.
So that's all going on too. Yeah. So some development, some retail, lots of design, many hats, which I really enjoy.
So how, like, I can imagine, I know lots of people that would deal with the opportunity or problem of many hats and having all that stuff that they're owning, so to speak, that they would deal with that by like just doubling down and, you know, great, I just work 16 hours a day and I'm happy and I love what I do, but I'm working 16. So like, how do you balance all of that? How do you be with all that?
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of taking on too much. I think a lot of us are. So there are days when I overdo it and do the 16 hours and don't eat properly and don't take care of myself. But honestly, to circle back to coaching, I think that our discussions over the years really did truly fundamentally help me to make sure I carve out a little space in the schedule for myself, and not I was chuckling away to myself as you were describing this like calendar before I came on of like, where do I slot people in? And I think I'm a lot more mindful of that than I used to be. Do try and keep in mind a lot of the things that we talked about over time, over the years that we had our discussions. But I think generally, yeah, time management. Also, in terms of leadership, I ended up hiring a lot more
That's the
people.
challenge of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely. I mean, in the beginning, it was myself and my husband. We're partners in this business, so we live and
Your
work
husband's name
together.
was Dave, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, Dave. And we have a little boy. We have a son who's 10.
Named
So
Monkey, if I remember correctly.
yes, I do call him Monkey still. Actual name Russell, but we can call him Monkey. Yeah. So there's a lot of great stuff there, and we have a lovely house, and we live near the beach on that, and I think the balance has been a lot better. But certainly, the tendency when you wear all those hats is to sort of hat hoard. I have all these great hats, and I want to be in charge of all this stuff, and I love all this stuff. So letting go of that, hiring proper people, has been a huge step forward for me, like to actually have a life and achieve all these things.
What do you find most challenging about so there's always, as you probably remember, there's sort of like what we do, and then there's the being underneath, and we can kind of layer, it's the common thing when you have like a manager who's overworked, they're like, oh, just delegate more. But of course, that's just a surface level solution. So what do you find most challenging? Like when you then hire people, where do you find your edge in that?
I think that the realization I've come to over time and age and experiences is that in all of these jobs that I do and these projects that I take on, the core thing that I really love is the people.
Uh-huh.
And that that connection that you make, which is so cool in design and building and all of that. You really get to know people in an intimate way. And I really love that. And I think one thing that has been tough is to allow other people in my business and people that I've employed to kind of share in that sweet spot with me. You know, that's a really lovely moment, and that connection is so important. So I do tend to probably have a bit of a struggle sharing that. It's easy to say, hey, you know, this person or that person finish this drawing or make this tile selection, or, you know, check that this wall went up straight, whatever. But
brush my teeth.
Indeed. But it's a lot harder to let go of those moments of like connectivity with the people. So that's one thing I'm definitely trying to do more, is like handing over a whole project, a whole person, a whole family that comes to me and says, I want to work with you. And I'm trying to make room for other people to actually engage with them directly and start that relationship and build it without me having to be right in the middle of the mix.
Yeah, I so get that one. I remember something you said to me like right at the start. I don't even think we'd started working together. And it might have been like after our first conversation towards the end, because it's so cool to hear what you're saying now. What you asked me, do you have a hunch of what I'm going to say?
Was it the misanthrope comment?
Probably, yeah. I don't remember that particular word, but I remember you saying like, so Adam, do you actually like people?
Yeah.
So tell me like what was going on, like tell us about where did that comment come from? What was going on for you at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I came to coaching really as a means of kind of support that is very different in its structure and in its goals, kind of therapy, right? Like I came to it because I wanted to focus on business and how to be a good leader, and, you know, how to structure things for myself in a positive way. I mean, I came to coaching for many reasons, but in the end, you get a lot more out of it than you would even think you're going to, or it goes on a different journey anyway. So when we first started talking, I really was in a place where I was struggling with my clients. I was struggling to kind of maintain positivity and love and care for those clients. And I think I didn't even realize how disturbing it was to me to be losing that connectivity and to be sort of feeling so negative toward people and my, you know, clients in particular. And at that time, I didn't have a staff. It was just Dave and myself. So all of these feelings of negativity and toward these clients and overwhelming kind of feeling about it, those were the forefront feelings. And I don't think I'd really made the connection that it's because I care so deeply about them that hurts me so much. That's taken a long time for me to actually realize, like, oh, I'm not a misanthrope. I actually really love people. I don't hate them. I love them. But they can hurt me.
Yeah. I remember like there was a part of you that cared so much. You didn't want, it was almost like you didn't want to disappoint or like give them bad news or anything. So you'd then hold that internally, and then they would have expectations that were unreasonable. And then over time you would start to resent them. And like, is that accurate the way I'm describing it?
Oh, yes. And that still happens. You know, I'm still at my heart, I will always be a people pleaser. You know, I think you just are that type of person in a kind of sales and service industry. You're probably drawn to that because you like that interaction and that feedback. So I try to be extremely mindful about overcommitting and overpromising now, and being more honest. I think that's something that it's a weird thing to think of yourself as not an honest person when I'm a good person. I'm a solid person. I don't tell lies to hurt people or anything. But at the same time, I really wasn't being very honest. I wasn't being honest about my time. I wasn't being honest about my limitations. And I thought if I was honest about those things, I would lose every client and the whole world would collapse.
It was very edgy, I remember, for you to practice that early on.
Yeah, I can't remember the exercises you made me do, but you made me like
made you do. How dare you?
You made me. I was scary. And I had to do something like send an email to someone right then and there to be honest and say, like, I can't meet your deadline. Again, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was really scary. And it wasn't even, a huge issue. It wasn't a life or death thing. I mean, I'm an interior designer. Nothing is life or death. But it was a really
Though
scary
people will
moment.
relate to it, I'm sure, that way. I would be shocked if they didn't.
Oh, toss pillows are very important.
If I don't get houndstooth curtains, which would be
That's it.
awesome, but yeah, that's right. Yeah. My fiance will leave me.
So,
When you started to practice that way,
mm,
which I totally can completely understand why that'd be edgy, and like all of the, now you sound like you have a lot of altitude on it. You can kind of see it for what it was, and like, oh wow, and it's still there a little bit or whatever. But in the moment, it back then it didn't feel like, oh yeah, this is a story I've made up. It felt like reality. Did you have any people? What was it like when people didn't respond positively? Like, did you have any encounters like that where you were now practicing this new way of showing up and they had a reaction to it?
the funny thing was, I had nothing but really positive experiences from it.
Mm.
I don't think, or I don't recall anyway, any negative feedback from that kind of honesty. And maybe that's where I was able to find my love of people again, because I realized, like, oh right, they're just people, and if I tell them that I need 2 more days to do something because it wasn't a realistic deadline, that's okay. So I mainly just had really good feedback and ended up with a much more productive ability to communicate with those clients and set up the timelines that were real, and it ended up being nothing but positive. So it's
Mm.
amazing to me looking back, and even funny, I should reflect on this more now too, that it was this big scary unknown thing. I don't have to be a superhero. I can be a normal human who gets tired and has to pick up their kid once in a while, and stuff happens.
Yeah. I remember there was a point, like, and I can't remember if this actually manifested itself for you, but I remember us being in some, I hope it's all right that I'm sort of sharing, not I'm intending to share a little bit, but let me know if you're like, whoa, Adam, I thought we had confidentiality. So please poke me
No,
if I
no
start to
problem.
step over that. But like, I remember part of our conversation being, there was a bit of concern, like you trained your clients, or some of them at least, to be kind of unreasonable in their expectations of you. And then now you're sort of basically, before you were someone that, let me see if I can get the right words here, created a clearing for people to bring unreasonable expectations, and then you kind of met them, which on the one hand is like, wow, Michelle's a superstar, but on the other hand, the only way you can meet those is by kind of cutting other stuff out of your life. And now you're starting, as a leader, you were sort of in your own life standing for, no, I can do stuff that's reasonable and honoring your own capacity. Did you ever have clients that pushed back at all, or did anything, or were they just like, you got it, no worries?
Yeah, I think there wasn't really specific pushback on time. Time was really the issue for me. Time was the
Right.
fundamental challenge, and still is. And there is still pushback in the way that everyone, I think, wants things
Yes.
done sooner and better, and
And
with
more
more
cheaply,
and
and better
more cheap.
quality, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
And fix
always
my
going to be
knee too. That's hurting as well. If
that.
you could put that in there too.
Top cushions, haircuts, knee surgery, bring it on. So there's always going to be that pressure from a client, always. And even now, like you were saying earlier, that sometimes before you send that email, or before you have that call with your fees, or with whatever you have, that fear exists.
Yes.
And certainly I still have that. If I'm about to type an email that says, especially in these crazy COVID times, the project, your plumbing package that was meant to arrive in September is now arriving in November. Fear is right there typing with me.
Yeah.
But I have a much, much better handle now on, I am not the person fabricating that toilet valve. I have no
Yet.
control over, until I dominate that industry. I have no control over these things. I know that I'm good at my job and that I do my absolute best for people, and that is enough.
Mm.
And if I can explain that, and if we built a relationship of trust that they know that, then that's all I can say. That's all I can offer, is to say, no one is going to try harder for you. No one is going to be there for you and support you through this plumbing crisis. But people will be disappointed, and sometimes people, of course, will extend that out toward me. But ultimately, I think because I'm in a much better place and rationalize it in a much healthier way, I don't take it on. Honestly, before I would do anything, even lying, to sort of withhold that truth on timing. Like, oh my God, I'm not going to get things done. And I would email them and say I was right in the middle of doing whatever task it was, even though I wasn't. And therefore the deadlines would compound on me. It was exhausting and stressful and affected my family life. Like, it was terrible. And I've shed kind of 99.9% of those bad habits. It still creeps in once in a while. I'm like, oh, I could just say, I'm doing it, or had already sent it. And I'm like, oh my God, Michelle, like, what would Adam say? So,
it is amazing how that stuff, we're doing this is like, but it's like a companion just over our shoulder. Yeah. It just hangs out and kind of reminds us like, yep, I'm still here. Like, we never fully overcome it. We just shift our relationship to it and can be with it rather than react to it. Did you ever one of the things that you created is rediscovering, not just rediscovering like intellectually, but like embodying kind of your love of people, the connection, and then I'm also hearing kind of like starting, or maybe honoring your own integrity, your sovereignty. Like, this is what I have available, and learning to trust that what you do is amazing and sufficient and all that. Did you have any inkling like that was stuff you wanted to leave with, like as you came into our work together, were you like, okay, I will not hate people and love them? Or like, how did that all, what were you looking at as you said yes and stepped into that kind of work?
I don't think I had a great awareness of a goal, really, or any level of detail like that when I started coaching with you, when you started coaching me, when we started coaching together. Anyway, I think that I came into coaching having had a conversation with one of your previous clients, who's a really good friend of mine. And we had a late night session just chatting. He's a business owner as well, an entrepreneur. And so we just connected on this way of like, here's our struggles, here's some things we're dealing with. And he just said that in speaking to you, he came to a lot of clarity on a lot of different levels. With him, it was other specific things. And I was at a point in life where I knew what I was doing on a day-to-day level was not sustainable. It was not sustainable for me to feel that way every day, have that crush of pressure, be sacrificing family time, friendships, everything. Everything was put at the altar of the work. Yeah, and so I think I came to coaching kind of heart in hand, like, help me.
This isn't working.
I am not a functioning, happy person right now. And I think at my core, I am a happy person. One thing that definitely I was worried about then and still rears its head is just, I'm a huge believer in, you get what you give, or, what you put out into the universe is what you receive on a like molecular level.
Yeah.
I really do think that positivity brings great things. It sounds like it has for you. You're doing amazing things, and it's so great to hear that. And what you're putting out into the world will come back to you. And a big fear of mine when I started the coaching and had this sort of misanthrope attitude and this sort of negativity is, oh my God, am I fundamentally changing who I am? Am I exuding this negativity? And that is not the human that I am, not the person that I want to be. So I need to get some control over some external things so that I don't, and some internal things, so I don't feel this way and I don't exude that.
That's what I love about that is not like, there's so many ways we can get into any transformational work, whether it's coaching, working with a potent leader, even getting into Landmark or whatever our thing happens to be. And like, that's one of them where it's just like, stuff's not working. And I imagine, you're incredibly capable and talented, that you could have kept that machine going the way it was going for quite some time. It just would have like continued building more of that and more of what you were experiencing and all of that. Did you have any misgivings?
About coaching?
Or the work in front of you, or like any of it?
Never really about the work. I think that it was really clear, and I like you have a very excellent way of I've always really appreciated the way you were able to take my sort of garbled explanation of what I was trying to say and how I was feeling, and you'd be like, oh, and here's this really succinct, lovely way of saying it, and here's also a reference book in which you can you can look this up in more detail. So I felt along the way with the coaching, it was very like clear and evolved in a really great way. I think for me, fear showed up with money, for sure.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I can't possibly, spend money on myself like this, or I can't take the time and money, the two,
Yeah.
the two things.
Especially if like part of the story I heard about you was almost like, bear with me, but check my feet on this, but like it sounded almost like who I am just by virtue of being in a room is not enough. There's also all this other stuff I have to do to then be enough for people, i.e., make every deadline, fix the toilet plumbing problem, all that other stuff. And so I could imagine from, that beginning, the kind of investment required from coaching just on yourself, like it's purely about yourself, would have been quite an edge to climb over.
A huge one. I mean, it was a really big decision for me. Certainly, yeah, financially, it was a commitment. Though in the end, I really appreciated that commitment is also part of what I had to deal with in a way.
Right. Like part of your breakthrough was taking that on.
Yeah, exactly. And that continues in other aspects of my life now. Like one thing that I got into a lot through support from coaching was I now have a personal trainer.
Oh, wow, that's cool. I think I remember when that was starting out.
Yeah. I think it was one of my goal worksheet things, and I was like, I really want to be more physically fit.
I think actually what you wrote is get jacked, I believe.
Get jacked, yeah.
Or shredded, maybe, like, or
yeah, no more skinny fat. So that's something too that I've maintained and was a bit scary. It was like, okay, I'm going to commit to not just a gym membership, but I'm going to do this 2-3 times a week, have this personal trainer, make this commitment. And again, it's always the time money factor. Like, okay, I'm going to spend this money and I'm going to commit to this as part of my budget, but then I'm also going to commit this time. Like, oh my God, that's in some ways, as things have evolved and business has grown, it's become much more about the time even than about the money. And it's like, oh my God, do I deserve to take, an hour out of my morning 3 times a week to go to the gym? Like I could be fucking fixing plumbing.
Yeah. Well, there's such truth to that, because in my life, what I'm noticing is what's being called of me, is the way I'll word it. Well, you heard this at the start, is to cause more, but do less. Because I'm up to so much, I can't do it all. And not only if I try to, first of all, it cuts into my well-being, it cuts into my play, my joy, my experience of delight in my life. It also, I notice, cuts into other people's ability to step into their leadership, because I've got my hands in that pie and they can't actually do their stuff. It stops them from making a mistake, but that's an important part of leadership. Yeah. So what you're up to developing, you've got design, you've got bed, bath, and babies. Is that right?
Yeah, bed, bath,
I like
babies.
That you went more specific than linens and things. That was way too general. Got to be more specific, guys. So you've got those 3 things. What's is there, excuse me, is there a big project you're currently working on, or something that you're like bringing into the world?
Yeah, I think that the big project and something that's really exciting, they're all exciting in their own way, of course, but the development side and working with my family on that is really interesting. And it's not what I expected it to be. I mean, even years ago when I was discussing it, thinking, okay, I'd like to take on this larger role of development and building, it was very appealing, and I could see it as a natural path should I choose to take it. And so I did make that choice, and I took that path, and now I'm partnered with my dad and my husband, and we're all involved in building this building and creating this new family company for development. And it's been really positive, but it's also been insightful into, it was a bit, it was a big carrot, right?
Say more
Development.
about that. What do you mean
Ooh,
by like just it
right.
was sexy to choose into?
Yeah, like it's a big, tangible, amazing thing to do. You know, everyone seems to want to be a developer these days. Oh, I bought land and I'm developing. I mean, my God. So to get into that felt, yeah, exactly, cigars and whatnot. Um, it felt, and also my family legacy and history in Cayman has been based on development. So I
Mm,
think I had a lot wrapped up in the idea of continuing that and being a part of that and taking it into the future. And it's been a very interesting experience having now made that commitment, you know, being part of it, making the commitment, putting the building together, building it, being in a family business, and realizing like, I wonder if this is actually the end game for me, or whether
mm,
I really actually prefer a smaller scale of work and more intimate relationships. Again, going back to those relationships, development, you have it, but not in the same way as you do with design. Like I don't get quite as juiced up about, you know, a development meeting as I do honestly about someone's very simple design meeting where I'm bringing some joy into their lives and really connecting with them. So it's been great to go on the journey and do the development, but I
yeah.
actually don't know if that's going to be the end game.
What so I get like just sort of legacy, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of like tradition, or this is what we've always done, or this is the path my family has walked. So I can understand the pull of that. Was there anything else that had you kind of be like, hell yeah, development? Like, what other possibility did you see or hope for in going down that route?
Oh, well, financially, I mean, it's the big ticket item, but
Right? You'll be a billionaire or whatever. You'll have all the money you need, like that kind of thing.
absolutely
Yeah.
billions.
Yeah.
Um, I reflect now, having gone into it and seeing the challenges and the struggle and whatnot of that business. I come back to the tortoise and the hare a lot, and my husband and I talk about this all the time. Where we're like, what is it really that we enjoy doing? And at the end of it all, you know, how we get there, we can choose different means. You know, we can be the tortoise and kind of stick with our design business and really enjoy that process and connect with people. Or, you know, we could try the hare. We could get into development. We could go big. You could lose it all. You could make it all. Like, who knows what could happen in that business? It's a crazy business.
Right.
And I think ultimately, as I get older, I'm like, I really like the tortoise. Tortoise is the happy place. The
Yeah.
hare is scary, and in some ways scary can be exciting, right? Scary can be like, oh, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm not going to avoid doing this and having this experience because I'm afraid of it. I should, you know, grab that and ride it into the wind. um but at the same
I
time,
have
if
this
it's
image of
true,
you like on a
yeah,
hare with a little small saddle on it.
tiny saddle,
Great.
just
Oh, bareback,
there you
bareback that hare.
go.
Let,
Yeah, so it's been a good journey. It's been an interesting journey, kind of going through all of this, and we'll see what happens. I'm not sure.
so would it, what I heard sounded like the main kind of what fors, like why choose into that were money and like tradition, but it didn't sound like there was a lot of like, oh, I would really want to sit down with people and design the building of their dream. There's nothing like that for you. Is that accurate?
Yeah, see, again, you're doing it perfectly. Perfect summary of my like weird rabbit analogies.
Well, I really love everything you just described about that. And one of the things it reminded me of was this conversation I have, as you probably do as well. People just reach out, they add me on Facebook, they add me on LinkedIn, they add me on Instagram, and then they pitched me, is ultimately what happens. And so there's this guy that reached out to me and was like, he had his, I don't know what you'd call it, like his byline was about cryptocurrency. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see what happens. Adam, well, maybe I'll change this guy's life. I don't know. And so he reaches out and he's like, hey, man, what's up? Blah, 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 pleasantries aside. And then, you know, he starts talking about what he does and asks, like, are you into crypto? And I'm like, nope. And he's like, oh, you should totally be into crypto. I'm like, why should I totally be into crypto? And so, anyhow, I was just exploring this conversation with him and also asking him, like, what do you love about what you do? Like, great, you love it. Tell me about it. What he loved about it was that he could make money from anywhere in the world, which is totally fine. But in that, what I heard was like, there's nothing about crypto this guy loves. It's about what it allows in his life. And he was like, I think you should really get into this, Adam. I'm like, I'm very clear, I'm not interested, but tell me why you think I should get into this. And he was like, well, one, it never hurts to make more money. I have thoughts about that. Two, I think if you even don't find it interesting, you'll see like you can really make money in it, blah, blah, blah. So what I was present to and what he was sharing was ultimately his reason was you can make money doing this. And I take from that, there's sort of, now I'm starting to surmise or infer a bunch of stuff, but my hunch is that he has a story, and maybe he's never explored it, that whatever he really loves doing, he can't make enough money in it. And therefore he needs to do crypto because that will give him enough money, as opposed to what for me would be an exciting conversation to be and with that guy is like, let's look at what you love doing. How much money do you want to make doing that? And what's the story that has that have a ceiling on it? Because fuck crypto. I mean, if you love crypto, great. But if all you love about it is you can be anywhere in the world, dude, there's a million ways we can create that magic for you. And it doesn't have to be doing something that you kind of like. Do you get invited to crypto?
I mean, oh, crypto. Like, do you just buy a Bitcoin and just get it over with? You know, just so you have it and then you can stop the conversations. I do think about it. There's actually a whole contingency of like Bitcoin new people that are coming into Cayman.
Yes, yeah.
It's a new industry that's going to be happening here. So
Cayman's quite a tax shelter too, right? Yeah. Okay. So it makes sense you'd have some of that energy flowing through, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's known for kind of being this tax haven, and people come here and well, we don't have any taxes. There's no property tax. There's no income tax. There's a
wow. Oh, you froze. You're going to come back though, because I want to know how they possibly do anything without charging any tax. This is I'm imagining what's happening right now is this is part of what occurs when there's no. Oh, you just came back.
I think we might be paused. I'm just gonna keep talking.
Are you back, Michelle?
You don't really love just because you're making money on it. Oh, yay. I'm back.
We're synchronized. Okay, good. Tell me this. How does Cayman like do any governance without taxation then? Like what's their approach for that?
We have a really high essentially tax on goods. So
got it.
Anything in here, like in my industry, so let's say you bought a sofa, you'd have to pay 20% duty on that sofa, and that 20% goes toward the government and infrastructure and all that. And then we have like if you purchase a property, there's a tax that goes to the government on that, but it's not like fixed taxes attached to assets or attached to your work or your income or anything like that.
Huh, fascinating. Were you, it sounded like I cut you off when I asked you if you liked, or if you've been approached by crypto or anything. Like, was there anything that showed up as I was sharing what I shared?
Oh, no, just the crypto thing. I just laugh because it's just the buzz of everywhere right now, crypto and the whole thing. And I think maybe because this all kind of ties together, because Cayman is this tax haven and this very interesting jurisdiction in the world, in the financial world, you get a lot of entrepreneurs here. And a lot of people coming from other places that have made money and then get their residency here in Cayman and live out their days traveling and whatnot. And so the crypto and all of that right now is just like on everyone's mind, and who's got what and what are they doing about it. And it's such you can't help but feel like it's a bit of a racket. Like, oh, okay, guys, like it is just purely like a money-based sort of, or we made this, we lost this. Oh, if only I'd been in at this point in time. And it gets a little icky to hear about it all the time. Honestly, it's like, okay, got it.
Yeah, I find, I mean, nothing against it. If people enjoy it, great, right? Like if whatever someone does empowers them, I'm for it. But the thing I'm really present to is our fear of missing out. Like, oh, what if this is the thing? I can make a bunch of money, and then I could. The story goes, right? Once I make enough money, then I could do, have, or be whatever it is that I want to do, have, or be. So I got to do this first. That story's kind of bankrupt, but that's a whole nother conversation. And so, yeah, a lot of fear about missing out on that big hit. And then the other part that's there for me is well, I'm just such an unsexy investor. I'm just like, take my money, put it in the most boring fucking place it could go, and let it grow very slowly, because I'm not really too worried. Like, I find once you start to live with some fundamentals of good financial, don't blow all your money on a big giant new fancy Escalade or stuff like that.
Yeah.
This stuff starts to like, okay, that's taking care of itself. I don't really have to sweat that too much. Do you find, is that still, is money still like a thing that pokes you from time to time? It's like, you got to get more, you got to be on the lookout, or?
Oh, hugely.
Yeah.
I think as an entrepreneur, someone who, has multiple businesses, and that's like, and I would take more on, honestly, if I found other opportunities for other businesses, I would take it. I'm always thinking about that and opportunities, and you joke about like if I could make the plumbing parts, but honestly, like
you would lean into that.
I would do it. It's just, that's really exciting and fun for me. But where were we going with this? I was starting thinking about plumbing parts, and
we were talking about like fear, the money sort of like still poking you with its fear.
Yeah, for sure. That is a driving factor, in my life, that I do need to be mindful on how I structure my thoughts around it, because I do find that when I get stressed, I'll this is so sad. I'll like print out my profit and loss for the year and just be like, hello, baby. Hello, sweet. Sweet piece of paper. Get it. Like, how sad is that? But it's a real comfort.
It's really honest. Really honest is what it is. Yeah.
And things are going really well. Business is going great. So it is a nice moment to be like, okay, we're going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. But very much that is based on like, that truly that bottom line.
Oh, you got to stop pausing in these awkward places, Michelle. I'm going to feel this. Oh, you just came back.
Me feel like it's nice to celebrate. Oh,
you're back now. You were saying, please, it's nice to celebrate.
Yeah, it's great to celebrate. And again, I struggle to celebrate that sometimes. I feel anyway that I've been programmed to kind of self-deprecation is the right way to go, and, keep quiet about things. And so I think it's nice sometimes to be like, hey, I kicked ass this year. Like, we made all this money and it was awesome. Yay, us. Yes. But at the same time, that for me, that can easily kind of siphon over into this other place where it's like it's right, living right next to fear. It's right.
Yeah. Like
fear again. And it's like right here, like, it's going to be okay because, you made enough money that you can offset fear for a little while. And I don't love that. That's something I do try and get a bit of a healthier attitude toward.
Well spoken.
Like you're saying, it's not the means meet the end. I don't want to sort of kill myself for 5-10 years making this money and then be like, and then I'll buy the boat that I want, and then I'll take 3 months off in the summer and travel, and then I'll do all those things. And there was one really, really poignant thing that you said to me once in one of our discussions, and it was like, what would it take for you to stop? Like, what would it actually take, Michelle, for you to like break the habit in a serious way and stop some of these negative cycles? Or you put it in a nicer way, but and you really challenged me. You were like, you gave a few examples and you kind of built up, and then the final example that you gave was like, would it be, that someone in your family is ill? Would it be that your son, gets sick? Like, would that actually be enough to finally like stop you from this sort of crazy trajectory that you're putting yourself on? And that was like, whoa, because you were absolutely right. Like, it would have taken something that huge for me to actually make any kind of meaningful change. It would have taken this like moment of just can't avoid it, life stuff to actually initiate a change. And that was pretty insightful into like, ooh, I need to maybe get a bit of a grip here.
One of the things that it's probably about 3 years ago now, but I was like really taking on a breakthrough around money, and not what that means is not like, how do I make enough of it or something, like, but how do I want a different relationship to it entirely. And what I was committed to creating was that who I beed about my money was consistent, regardless of what my money was doing. So on a upswing, I was being consistent. On a downswing, I was being consistent. Typically what happened is like when it went down, budget is fuck. And then when it went up, fuck the budget. And then when it down, and all of that sort of stuff. And so as I worked with my coach on that, what happened was so much of the significance was taken away from money. And it just became kind of like oxygen in a way. I need it, but I trust that it's there and that I'm up to what needs to happen. And I take action, just like I don't go scuba diving without checking my gear. I'm conscious of money, but I'm not obsessed with it. And I'm also not flippant about it. And what's really interesting to me is in creating that, there's so much more freedom available, but the sex, the hit of getting like a bunch of money coming to my account is not there anymore. It doesn't have that same, like shot in the arm that I used to really get high on. And I also don't have the crash on the other side, but it's interesting noticing that and being like, kind of missed that, even though I know, I imagine this is how I don't want to couch this as an addiction, but how every addict feels as we let go of whatever it is we're using to stimulate ourselves. We're kind of like, I know I'm better for it, but I do miss that high. That high was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. We all have, and who knows where it comes from in our history or whatever, but we all have these very strange approaches to money. My love of the profit and loss is based stroke it and love it, is based, and my high that I get is actually not from necessarily like, I just got paid. I'm actually more of a hoarder. I really like to see like, all of these projects are on the books, and therefore I'll tabulate, this is the money that might be coming in the future. It's not even secure. It's definitely, chicken before the egg kind of thing.
Right.
But to me, sort of having that, it's such a security for me. Like I don't even have to have it in the bank account. I don't even, and I'm terrible at billing. So half the time it's like a year later and I haven't even billed properly. So obviously that driver is not there to actually get the money. It's the idea and the security that comes along with sort of having those projects equaling money and having it out there in the world is enough. And if I didn't have that, then, again, the sky would fall.
How was it when so you've been an entrepreneur for what, 20 years, would you say? Like how long?
Yeah, I guess we've been here for almost 15 years. So let's say 15 years. Yeah.
Okay. So how was it when you first started? Because, you have, at this point, you got some momentum behind you. And even if you're working to break some of this up, there's still like, you've got a castle to support you, so to speak. How was it for you early on? And how did you deal with it back then when there was like, hey, we're creating from ground zero?
Yeah, I think way back then when I was, just a young
pup.
a young lassie, it was actually a lot easier. My office was a corner desk in my dad's office. I had one computer, I had a printer, and that's all I needed. Like there was no overhead. There was no, we were renting an apartment. We didn't have a kid.
Right. It was like the stakes were lower, less to lose.
Yeah, there was a lot less pressure. And I think I was also not thinking as much about that pressure because I was learning my trade. So I was, I just graduated from architecture school and we decided to move to Cayman. So we were in Toronto, living in Toronto. My husband and I are both designers. I finished architecture school. He was in interior design actually, and then in architecture. And we decided to just pick up sticks and move back to Cayman because there was some opportunity here. And so I was very new.
Specific opportunity or just general, like opportunity is in the air?
Specific. So my dad at that time was building 3 buildings. So we were able to come down and kind of just jump in that, not on a development level, but more on like Dave became the project manager for the building. So he learned so much about everything.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy how much he learned and how quickly. And at the same time, I started design studio. So I was able to work with some of those purchasers and owners on the interior design side. So I think in the early days, I was so overwhelmed with like the imposter syndrome, like, oh my God, I've started this design firm and what am I doing? And I used to wake up at night. I remember specifically Dave telling me one night, like, you gotta stop thinking about these friggin' pillows. Like I was like, oh, this client wants this specific type of pillow. I think it was pillows anyway. And I would literally wake up at night and be like, have I chosen the right fabric? Oh my God, is it gonna be awful? Like things that were so instrumental then, or so overwhelming then, are very easy now.
Right.
But now the business is built in such a different way that, there's so much more financial pressure. I have like 12 people more between all 12 people just in design studio working for us, and a family and a house and all of these things now that require financial support.
Right.
And I take all of it really seriously. The idea that 12 people are relying on me for their kids' educations and their mortgage payments and their hopes and dreams and travels that come down to a need for financial, the reality of financial support, weighs really, really heavily on me. I think all of that is now obviously making the money thing much more important, and the design has become more of a second nature. Like I can do the design. I love that.
Right. You trust that.
I trust that.
Yeah.
I generally know what I'm doing. Whereas in the beginning it was like, holy crap, like I gotta design this stuff, and the money was like, who cares?
Right. This is a silly question, but like, what's a pet peeve for you when it comes to design?
Ooh, great question. I think when the biggest pet peeve, and this is sort of a broad stroke, is really when people think they know more than they do. And don't trust me, and don't trust the professionals to do their jobs. Like there's just nothing more frustrating than knowing something's right and that it's going to work, and then someone saying, no, I won't let you do it that way because I've seen HGTV and I know what to do. I mean, that's a silly example, but
I get it though.
Yeah, like if you're going to hire a professional, please let us do our jobs. That's what we're here for.
I'm going to hire you, and then so that I can challenge you and then dismiss your opinion and then blame you for how things turn out.
Yes. And it does happen. But yeah, I think that is a bit of a pet peeve. I used to really get hurt, less of a pet peeve, more of just like hurt what if people, didn't like things, or because, design's like hard on your sleeve. You have to present your ideas in order to get feedback. So it's out there in the world, and then you get the feedback. So you've done it, your heart's on your sleeve. And I used to get really upset if people were kind of like harsh about the feedback. And now, as I've gotten older, I find that doesn't bother me at all anymore. In fact, I get more of a pet peeve if people are like pussyfooting around the truth.
It's nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Super, super nice. I'm like, obviously you don't like it. It's okay. Yes. Just tell me. And I always say to people, like one of the first meetings I have with them now, because this has kind of become a common phenomenon. First time I meet them, architecture school beat that out of me. You cannot hurt my feelings. Like,
right.
I am a designer. Like, you just tell me how you feel. We will get there in the end, one way or the other. So I always feel a bit, I guess pet peeve, or a bit disappointed when people don't trust themselves or me enough to say, let's try something else, or I don't really like this. They don't have to be mean about it. Though I do have a client right now who's actually really mean about it. I'm kind of having this fascinating, interesting interaction with this person because they're so rude and mean about their reactions. I'm like, I'm kind of digging this in a weird way. Like, this is really unusual.
That's always interesting to me, because at least in my work, I'm like, oh, this is the experience I'm currently having with this person is the experience this person brings with them everywhere in life. Yeah. So everyone is having this experience with them, and that's also what's happening inside. That's how they are being about their own shortcomings or whatever. That always gives me a little bit of compassion then, where I'm like, wow, this cannot be pleasant for you to be around.
Oh, and it's fascinating to me to think about those individuals just going out to the grocery store or to a restaurant, and I'm like,
these peaches suck.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, to be that worked up and that stressed is like, I don't know. I'm fascinated, honestly, by it. But the nice thing is I'm not hurt by it.
Yes. Yeah. You're not taking it personally.
It's, I'm not taking it so personally.
Oh, there we go. We caught up just as I said what you were saying. So that was perfect timing. I'm getting really good at these pauses.
Nice one.
Um, okay, last question before we wind down. This is another silly one. What's something we would be surprised to discover about design?
I think just how stressful it is.
Mm,
I think in terms of being a designer, not that's probably not a very sexy, fun answer, but in terms of what a designer does, it's very intimate, and there that probably adds a layer of stress. It's very personal.
yeah.
Um, well, especially I do residential design, not so much commercial. So, you get to know people. You don't want to disappoint them, and the stress that comes along with that is immense. So on an interpersonal level, it can be quite stressful, but also just on a detail level, I don't think I could have picked a more disparate, micro engaged industry.
Mm,
Every little thing is dealt with in interior design, more so than in architecture, because I trained as an architect. I went to school for architecture. I thought that's the direction I was going to go. But that's, even, especially these days with engineers being involved, that's more of a broad stroke thing. Interior design is like, my God, what are the grout colors? What are every little micro thing that is involved in interior design is really intense and really,
mm,
really stressful. So I think sometimes people assume that as an interior designer, I'm there to like pick the paint color and toss the cushions, but like it's
right.
a very technical job.
Huh. Yeah, that makes complete sense. I could really see how you're offering people, like you put it, like a part of your heart, like here's my taste to some extent, although I imagine kind of like a haircut in a way. I don't want to diminish any of what you're doing, but like a good stylist is kind of co-creating something with you. They're like, here's my taste, but then what will match? And I imagine you're doing that same kind of dance with probably the most exciting clients to work with. And that would
Yeah.
always be kind of challenging because it's not that you're just selling them a widget over there. I mean, like, there you go. You're selling them a part of your own personality, your own you.
Yeah. Very much so. And I think there's two types of designers out there. One is the designer that has their style, and people go to them because they want that style. They've
Right.
perfected it. It looks like X, and you
Yeah.
know that you're going to get a variation on X. And we talk in house and between ourselves often about, like, is that the direction to go? Do you just become a super expert in that one arena and know every detail of design and that look and just perfect it, versus what we do? And I, whether I like it or not or want to always be like that, I don't think I could ever follow the X pattern anyway. So we talk about it,
Right.
but I could probably never do it. The other way is sort of the XYZ, like the client comes to you, they have a vision, you work with them, and sometimes you get really weird stuff. Some people want things that you think are not very nice, and it's my job then to make them nice and to make it work and to work with them so that they're happy, and that's the ultimate solution. So I think, it is a real balance. It's a lot of psychology as well.
Totally. Yeah. Applied psychology. There's houses locally, well, everywhere, but like that I drive through our beautiful neighborhood. And sometimes I'll see like they've painted it all like Smurf blue or something. And I'm just like, huh, I wonder. First of all, I can't imagine a design like I think that was their decision. I don't think they got support. And I wonder to myself if they sort of are like, that's exactly how I thought that was going to be. Or if they're now like, oh, and then they're in the act of like, that thing people do where they every day wake up and kind of convince themselves that this is sort of what I wanted. And
Yeah.
always curious about that because you can really tell, oh, this was totally a decision you made
Yeah.
free of any design profession. Or maybe the person was like, maybe try this shade. And they're like, no, bold royal blue is the color of my house. And that's fine for them to do, but it just visually is like, whoa.
No, exactly.
Um, let's wind down. Before we do, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you're like, we got to talk about this or we should or anything like that?
Oh my gosh. No, I think we covered some interesting points and went in a few places that I wasn't expecting to go. So that's always fun.
Cool. Well, then can I acknowledge you to finish up, Michelle? Because it's been like 5 years since I've gotten to do that.
Yeah, sure.
Sweet. So first of all, you're just such a delight from head to toe. Like your style is so elegant. There's such a there's a real like queen-like energy that you have about you, but not queen in the sense of not a Beyonce queen, not that there's anything wrong with that, but more like the elegance and the graciousness and the ability to laugh and enjoy all of this, and at the same time to like hold your arms around all of it. I love the playfulness and the wit that you bring into the space. I love and acknowledge you for the wallpaper behind you. And I was going to be like, what's the right number of patterns? And I'm sure you could, well, you probably have like a much more elegant answer than what I would do. And I really acknowledge you for the ground taken. Just to hear you talk about, you kind of came onto the call and started talking about how you love people and how when you're designing with people, you really get to like engage with them. So fucking cool. Because I really remember that misanthrope comment, and beautiful work. You've done so much. Thanks for sharing everything you shared here with everyone. And I love you. And it's awesome to get to spend this time together.
Thanks so much. It was a great conversation. Amazing as always.
Is there anything that you feel like plugging, or any project you're up to that people should know about?
Crypto, no.
Your new crypto thing is big. Where do people, like, if people are just like, I want to just know more about Michelle, like, do you have a website or anything like that?
Yeah, we have, we have a website, but I would check out our Instagram feed. It's Design Studio Interiors.
I'm just going to make sure I get this. Design Studio Interiors.
Yeah.
Oh, and Facebook tried to fix that. Yeah, please continue.
And we've been trying to put more effort into that. I've got a marketing team on it now, so it's not so DIY. And
I have one of those
really
too.
Fun, kind of photographing some projects. Yeah, it's good, right?
Ish. It's like a work. I'm training them to, I'm like, don't use 7 exclamation marks. That's not my voice. So it's, it's working with people and collaborating. Yeah. Cool. So follow your Instagram feed. That's where the good stuff is.
Yeah, cool. Some good imagery and some fun things.
Awesome. Let me just check and see if there's anything I want to share by way of closing out. If you don't listen to Get Lit yet, you should. That's my podcast. It's just search for Adam Quiney Get Lit, or you can go to my website, which is adamquiney.com. And it's all leadership. There's about 200 episodes there, and each episode's a half-hour episode where we distinguish some kind of thing about leadership that is often counterintuitive and goes against the grain of whatever gets posted on Facebook or LinkedIn. And all of these kind of conversations, like this conversation with Michelle, that gets uploaded there too. So if you find it hard to sit in front of Facebook and listen for an hour or so, you can just listen to it on audio while you're biking or doing your exercise. So check that out, everyone. I hope you guys all have an amazing weekend. Thanks everyone for tuning in and hanging out with Michelle and I. And we'll catch you whenever we do the next live show, which might be in a couple of weeks because I'm going to Quebec. See you, everyone. Bye-bye.